Alright, so what we want to do, we want to have a look at some of the games that Serral played at ROG Summer. That event literally wrapped up yesterday, if you're watching this on a Monday. It wrapped up yesterday. And turns out Serral is pretty good at playing with the Zerg units. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is his Zerg versus Protoss. I haven't seen these games myself yet, so I don't really know exactly if this one is noteworthy. Drogo is, generally speaking, a top-level Protoss player on the European server. Currently, I think he's sitting at like 6.9k MMR or so, which would put him right around like rank 3, 4 on the ladder. Serral, obviously, rank 1. He's very good at playing, you know, the Zerg units. I always like to have a look at the games, just like specifically from his perspective, just to see what he's looking at. So you can see right here the hotkeying as well at the bottom of the screen. You can have a look at the different things that he's looking at. And first thing to notice, I guess, he's pretty fast. Mostly just spamming though. All right. All right, so I already like smooth moves like that, right? If this was me, I'd probably try to see if I could still get the natural up. He sees the probe coming across the map earlier than he would want to, and then he decides to go ahead and just simply drop down a base over at the 3rd instead. Rather than going for a 16 hatch that he was planning on, he goes for the 17 hatch. This obviously messes up everything a little bit already. I sometimes find myself getting a little bit too defensive in these kind of scenarios. It's really easy to look at this and think, oh man, now the adept can go in several different angles. How many drones do I make? Notice as well, actually, that he doesn't even bother scouting his own base over here. I would pretty much always route this Overlord over to the 3rd base, just to make sure that we know that there's no cannon rush or whatever happening, but I don't think Serral's too worried about that. Just because if you decide to cannon rush the 3rd base, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right? So he goes for a hatch into a gas into a spawning pool. Pretty straightforward. I retweeted the Aces ROG replay pack URL that they tweeted last night. So if you look on my Twitter, it's twitter.com/LowkoTV, there's a link to this replay pack as well. I try and do so whenever there's like a big replay pack of any big tournament. So I do so for like, I know WCS Summer, and I know for like a bunch of the big events recently, at least I've been trying to make sure everyone's aware. All right, so very normal opener here. I'm curious to see how many Zerglings he produces. So my issue right here, if my 3rd base is my first base to take, usually is that my opponent can send the adept either to the 3rd or the main, and it can become a little bit tricky. Just because you, like without Zergling speed, right, it's really hard to position your units properly. So I think he's gonna go for just Zergling speed here pretty quick. So 1 queen, 1 set of Zerglings. Zergling speed. And he actually pulls all the drones. No, okay, never mind. I thought for a second he pulled all the drones out, I guess. For some reason, my gameplay settings do not show worker status. There you go. Sometimes I turn that off whenever I want to make a screenshot. So he sees 1 chrono boost right there. So did he start up another set of Zerglings? Yeah, so that one is actually going to be on the 3rd base. First group of Zerglings seems to actually want to move out. Okay, so he's actually using those for scouting information then. This would make me pretty worried though, right? Because the main base right now is completely open. I mean, obviously Protoss doesn't know that. Goes for the standard 3rd base at 30 supply. That is normal. It's just that now he has to take his natural rather than the 3rd. And he goes for an additional set of Zerglings. Okay, so this is exactly what I've been doing as well. That's good. I mean, there's a couple of differences. I would usually make those extra Zerglings a little bit sooner. But at the very least, that means I've been doing the right thing. Making like an extra group of Zerglings just to defend against the first adept. Cool. Alright, so that's that shade inside of the main. He knows Protoss won't commit. He's got an Overlord above the little adept shade. Alright. Zergling speed comes up. When did he re-put the drones into gas? So far it's been hatch gas pool into a 30 or so 3rd base. He pulled the drones out of gas when he hit 100 gas. Starts up Zergling speed. Now I'm curious to see when he actually decides to put drones back. I'm assuming it's after he starts up the 3rd base. It's these tiny details that I'm interested in, okay? So I'm gonna start looking here at some really small, minute details, but just bear with me. We'll get into the juicier part of unit production and all that later on. Alright, so third base goes up. Is this the point where he puts drones back into gas? I'm not sure. Maybe it's actually when link speed finishes. That's what a lot of people used to do. Nowadays, a lot of people like to put them back in a little bit sooner. Alright, yeah, it's a little bit sooner than that. Okay, so nothing out of the ordinary. Okay. So heavy drone. So there's a few things you have to think about, right? When you're playing Zerg versus Protoss. There's like a list of different builds that Protoss can go for. And essentially what you want to do is cross the different options that Protoss can go for off of like a mental checklist, right? So when you think about the different Protoss openers on 2 bases, we're talking like Oracle openers, Phoenix into triple Oracle. We're talking mass Phoenixes, all of the different Stargate related openers. Then there's obviously the quick robotics play where they go for the Warp Prism, the Immortal stuff, Immortal juggling, the Dark Templar openers where they try and get the Dark Templar in, morph them into Archons, do Archon juggling. Then there's like the quick third bases. Like there's a variety of builds that Protoss wants to go for. And you really want to try and see if you can beat all of them by scouting as much as possible and then figuring out when you want to go ahead and expand. Now, a couple things we know, right? Generally speaking, if you want to counter a Dark Templar opener, if Protoss is opening up with a standard Dark Templar opener, you need to start up the lair at latest at 3:35, or you need to go Spore Crawlers at around 4 minutes. If you start your lair up at 3:35, you'll be fine against any kind of Dark Templar play. The same can usually be said for different Stargate openers. So if the Stargate is made in base, you usually want to start up Spore Crawlers by about 3:30. Now we're approaching 3:30 here. It's gonna be Dark Templar play. I'm curious to see how Serral responds here. Thank you, Lightning, for the 2 months. I appreciate that. And thank you, Diego. So he does have enough gas here to start up the lair. So this is just gonna be 3:35 lair. It is, okay. So I always tell the people that I coach to go for a 3:30 lair, just to play it safe. Serral is also playing it safe, okay? He had 1 second to spare. Excellent. Also notice, by the way, here, and I like this. This is not the kind of scouting that I usually do, and I really quite like this. So he sends the Overlord all the way around. And he actually only scouts with the Overlord pattern, so he can check if probes are mining gas. I think the reason for this is so he can eliminate potential, like, 7-8 gate Zealot all-ins. So there's, like, charge lot all-ins that a lot of Protoss players like to go for, where they go for 1 gas, and they basically just go ahead and put a bunch of probes in there initially. And then as soon as they start up charge, and as soon as they start up +1 melee maybe, and like enough gas to start up a prism and robotic facility and all that. Prism doesn't cost gas, but you get what I mean. Then they pull the probes off. So I think that's what he's looking for right here. Those kind of builds are usually played off of a single gas geyser. And I also like this little move here. So this Zergling actually is sent on a patrol move. I guess that is to scout an incoming prism. And obviously also to see if a third base is going to be planted over there. Alright, so 3:34, he goes for the lair. There you go. He sends the Overlord back immediately. Okay, so I think he's just looking here. Maybe if like Chrono Boost is going down, but probably primarily the gas. So look right here at the Zerglings near the front, right? Nothing's gonna leave that Protoss base without it being scouted. No way. So this Overlord right here, and actually this is like pretty vigilant by Serral. He's just scouting gases. Just trying to check out gases. I'm pretty sure he sees the gas here and then he turns back around. Yep, so he sees 1 gas started. He sees that this gas is going to be started too. That's all the info he needs, and then this Overlord should live. Very small move, but once again, if you eliminate different Protoss builds off of the mental checklist, you can figure out what kind of strategy they're going for. So for example, if you know, hey, it's a 4-gas Protoss play, it's very likely going to be a more Archon-focused opener, like a more gas-heavy focused opener, like for example Archons. That immediately also means if they're going 4 gases, it's not going to be a gateway-based opener, usually. Anyways, if anyone has any questions, by the way, feel free to let me know in the chat. Always looking to help in that regard. So I'm actually curious here about the timing of the Roach Warren. If you want to start up Roach speed right at the same time as Lair finishes, you need to start up the Roach Warren about a third of the way that the Lair is done. So when the Lair is about a third of the way done, that's when you start up the Roach Warren, and then you can start the upgrade right when the Lair finishes. Serral right here on purpose goes for the Roach Warren right after he starts up the Lair. Maybe it's because he hit a bit of a supply block here. I mean, he's just about he's just about to finish up an Overlord. That might be. Do you think Serral makes mistakes? I'm pretty sure he doesn't. Has Protoss done any aggression yet? Well, there was one adept, but this is a very standard game. It's just that we've been spending like the last 10 minutes looking at the first couple of minutes of this one game. But it's good, I think. So these small moves with the Overlords, and Serral actually being like a scary Terran and Protoss player as well. He knows exactly what kind of builds Protoss can go for here. Like he knows what kind of builds should be eliminated from the mental checklist, and which builds he can still expect. Alright, so there's Zerglings everywhere, and there's the Prism scouted immediately. Okay. So I think actually that's why why the Roach Warren started up a little bit earlier. The Roach Warren started up before the Lair was done, so he can start up Roaches by the time that this Prism arrives. Okay, so I like that. That's my first note. So very standard opener up to this point. Overlord scouting, scouts just the gases. 330 Lair, or I guess we'll write it down like 335 Lair plus Roach Warren. And Roach Warren was a little bit later, but I like to group things in my head. At that point, so by the time he starts producing units, and this is one of those benchmarks you can compare in your own game. And this is like when the game gets scary, right? So by the time he starts producing units, he's sitting at 42 drones, and we're 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the game. So 42 drones, the answer to the life, the universe, and everything. And then 420 is when he starts producing units, all right? So you know what that means, right? 420 roaches. Something like that. Now I want to go back real quick. What was the timing that he scouted for those gases? I want to really actually go back to where that Overlord came from. So that Overlord, that must be specifically for this map. That Overlord is already routed in that direction. This is the first Overlord Serral made. Does it actually get rerouted, or does he just know the exact timing? Oh wait, sorry, this one. Yeah, no, it's just immediately sent over there. Alright. So, Overlord scouting. Overlord scouting. First Overlord made. 13. So that's 13 supply. Already en route to check the main gases. Unscouted Protoss strat. 335 Lair plus Roach Warren. Okay. So I'm curious here to see when he decides to scout with that first Overlord, what timing that is. I think that's about 320-ish, right? Actually, no, it's about 330-ish. So, yeah. Scouted is about 330. And then this scout right over here is at about 4 minutes. Okay, so about 4 minutes. Second Overlord scout. First Overlord. Scouts natural gases at 4 minutes. So that's when you should expect them to go down. That's like the natural timing that Protoss usually in a macro game takes those gases. Now my only issue right here, with this first Overlord moving straight across the map is that it never even has the intention of hanging in a natural. So this would always make me a little bit worried in case it's like a cannon rush. Because if they go for a cannon rush, obviously normally you have that first Overlord hanging out in the natural. You wouldn't be able to scout that. Now he obviously saw that his opponent was going for a really early probe scout, thus it was meant to deny the base, but I don't think he planned on ever scouting his natural in the first place. Which makes me think that this is a very map-specific move. So that's one thing here to keep in mind. Yes, so I see someone asking about the early game scout here as well with the first Overlord. This is a big deal too. I didn't actually point this out, but for those of you curious, this first Overlord scout here can give you a ton of information. So there's a few Protoss builds, right, that they can go for. So they can go, after the Cybercore finishes, into 3 different types of tech. They can go Twilight Council, Robotics Facility, or Stargate. Now, Twilight Council and Robotics Facility are both 100 gas each. The Stargate is 150 gas. What that means is usually if Protoss wants to go ahead and go for a Stargate, they will delay that Cybernetics core upgrade. Now, what a lot of Protoss players have been doing here as well is purposely delay it just to make the opponent think that it's a Stargate opener. But in this case, it's going to be Twilight Council immediately, which is not scouted, but also a quick gas. So Serral right now sort of knows that it's not going to be a Stargate opener. Because if you want to go for a Stargate opener, you delay this upgrade until a little while later. Obviously, that's not ideal. And I don't think this is super useful if you play on, like, I don't know, below maybe Master in StarCraft 2 on the ladder. Because then there's still a lot of Protoss players that will just go Warp Gate and then go for Stargate, which is technically an inferior build. But, yeah. So that's one thing you may want to keep in mind as well. All right. So it scouts with the 2 Overlords right here. That's the most interesting part to me for now in this game. Very vigilant scouting. And then depending on what he saw, he makes the adjustments. So for example, if he wouldn't have seen any gases here in the natural, he may have started playing a little bit more conservatively. This is a very conservative opener, by the way, from Serral here in general. If you are looking for a standard way to open up, that still allows for like some movement, I suppose, and some flexibility. Like, for example, he didn't want to go for his main base or his first base over at the 3rd. It's a really good start. So he scouts the first Overlord. Sees, so we'll just actually call this scouting. Sees the Prism at 410. Dark Templar opener. Okay. So this is the kind of thing that I kind of need to know. I'm usually not too specific about what I see. It's like, oh, there's a Prism at 410. Don't know what that means. I don't know what... Well, I know it's probably going to be a Dark Templar opener. But there's a bunch of variety as well when it comes to the Prism openers. For example, if you go for like a High Templar into Archon drop immediately, that one comes a little bit later. But I wouldn't be able to differentiate the differences. Or you know, you go at it. Yeah, so this replay is over in like 5-6 minutes, right? And well, I mean, the replay goes for a little while longer. But that's why I'm really always super focused. And why I always emphasize everyone to play so many standard builds. Because, like, you don't have to, like, reinvent the wheel. It doesn't make any sense. I see a lot of people trying to come up with their own creative builds. And if you want to, totally fine. But the standard is here for a reason. Because these builds have been flushed out for many, many, many years. And, yeah, I don't think you really want to... Like, it doesn't make any sense to reinvent the wheel. Right? You can if you want to play fun builds, be my guest. But if you actually want to improve... Just, you know... Do what the top level pro gamers do and don't ask too many questions. Obviously, you can ask reasoning behind certain moves. But I've sort of come to the conclusion that it's best if you want to improve to just try and play like Serral does. And you'll probably be fine. just use the builds he plays. And you'll probably be okay. If you execute them to a T, like if you manage to go exactly to that 42 drone count at 420 that we saw earlier... and you scout as vigilantly as he does, there's no way you're gonna not be in Master League. That's just so, like, it's so straightforward. But, yeah, it's obviously very difficult to execute. So, anyways, that's why I'm hammering so much on the super early builds. Alright, so he sees Dark Templar here being morphed in. Standard Protoss 3rd base timings usually are about 5 minutes into the game. That's why this Overlord needed to stay alive. So it only scouted the gases. If this Overlord would have died, I can guarantee you that Serral would now send a Zergling over in this direction. He's looking to see when this 3rd base started. If he sees it start, he can go back to droning, right? If he doesn't see it, and actually this one, it's going to be over here. He does still have an Overlord, doesn't he? Yeah, he does still have an Overlord over at the north. So that one's actually going to scout this 3rd base in a second. But yeah, it's important to see those kind of things. Serral actually sneaks in 2 drones here. That's a little bit cheeky. That's just Serral being Serral. So how many roaches does he make? It's 8 roaches for defense. Okay. He's got a small group of units. And he actually hits a small supply block here. Anyways, so at this point, he's got 4 queens, very standard. And he also has about 8 roaches. Or exactly 8 roaches. So, response right here, 8 roaches. And then droning again. So this one right here, 222. Okay, yeah. That's under the scouting tab. Another thing to point out, right at lair, which was once again pretty early on, he goes for double overseer. Yeah, so 1 overseer, that's the one that's made in case the Dark Templar move in as Dark Templar rather than Archons. Drogo right here is respecting his opponent enough right here to know that Serral is going to have detection ready. But just, you know, to keep him on his toes, Serral obviously is forced to make an Overseer here, just in case the Dark Templar don't morph into Archons first. That's why these Zerglings hang around, so they can see what's happening. But he also goes for a second Overseer, and that one goes into the main base and scouts around there. So right at lair, double Overseer. 1 defense, 1 scouting. All right. Now, I haven't seen this game yet either, so I'm not entirely sure what the outcome is. But we'll see. We'll also have a look at the second game of this series after this one. So we can, like, cross-compare the different ones. We can figure out what the differences are between the different strategies. Alright, so he just continues droning here. It's gonna be some Archon harass. Very annoying. But still continues droning. Now, I'm quite surprised about his droning. He hasn't seen a third base. So I just want to go back to Serral's vision here for a second, because this is when the Overseer is going around in the main base. He doesn't check in the main base, but he confidently keeps droning. So this would be the moment where okay, now he figures out there's a third base here for Protoss. Now he knows. This would actually be the moment, though, where I would be personally a little bit worried. Because he hasn't seen a third base over at this location, which is most likely, but he's going full-on into droning. I guess all of the previous moves here that Drogo has made don't indicate him going for a 2-base all-in. It might also be due to the fact that he saw 4 gases and that he knows he's playing Drogo rather than someone else. Drogo likes to go for the third base. So this is the only moment where I would be a little bit skeptical. Yeah, he did not see Protoss making that many gateways, but he's not checking here either, right? So that's why I wanted to check his vision. So this is when the Overseer, if you look at the minimap, this is when that Overseer is going around inside of the main base. But he's very busy looking at what's going on over here, defending against these Archons, right? He's not checking the main base right now of Protoss. He's got a changeling morphing over there, but this is already, before he scouts anything like a third base, he's already queuing up massive amounts of drones. So here you might want to take a bit of a breather and just wait until you confirm the third base before you want to make this many drones. So the next thing I want to figure out here is when Serral decides to go back to full-on unit production. So in this game, I already saw an infestation pit here. So he goes for the evolution chamber. And then also, when's the infestation pit? So it's a 530 evo chamber. I've done replay analysis before of, like, for example, Raynor, and he usually goes for like a 6-minute Hydra then, and then also an Evo chamber at 6 minutes. So this one's a little bit sooner. I'm actually gonna go ahead and write that down real quick as well. So 530 Evo chamber. This is around the time that he reaches full saturation. So around the time of full saturation. Starts up roach speed, of course. Roach speed, by the way, is quite late here when you think about it, right? So notice right here, the lair finishes up at about like... So this is actually a big deal. I don't normally do that myself. So he goes for the 330 lair. 335. Goes for the roach warren. Goes for about 8 defensive roaches, but doesn't start roach speed up until much later. So he's convinced here that Protoss is not gonna be aggressive. Like, he's droning extremely hard, only finds out about the third base of Protoss right now. But I guess this opener right here just doesn't lead Protoss into many 2-base pushes. I guess he also saw that the Twilight Council wasn't upgrading. That might be a big tell, although he wasn't actually looking over here. I would be worried right now to drone up so aggressively, but... Anyway, so when does he start up the roach speed here? So he doesn't start up the roach speed until, like, Evo Chamber starts up as well.
Detected.
A party hat kit. Thank you for the resub. I appreciate that. That one was gifted to you by Gel Tusat. Thank you, Gel Tusat. So he goes 530 Evo Chamber plus Roach Speed at the same time. That's actually quite a bit later than I normally would take Roach Speed. Alright. So that's cool. And this is around the same time. Like, he probably doesn't time it at like 530. He probably times it by the fact that he's almost done droning. On 3 bases, that is. Now, from here on out, obviously, you've got a lot of different options when it comes to transitioning. So some players like to go for Hydras, into Lurkers, into Brute Lords, and all of that. A lot of the pro players like to mix it up depending on the opponent they play and depending on the map that they play on. Yeah, so in this game, apparently it's going to be Swarm Host. That will be the name of the game. So we see the Infestation Pit going up right around the time that we once again have full 3-base saturation, right? So transition at full saturation on 3 bases to a, what's it called? Infestation Pit. Loko may ask a question, says Johannes. Does the build order also apply on ladder? Because you pointed out pro gamers know each other. So there are some mind games that are being played, but the vast majority of the players still open up very standard. I would say, like, the only move that I've really seen in this game is the droning that goes up after or before he scouts out that there's a third base. So he scouts the third base right now and he already is droning up very greedily. I think this might potentially be Serral playing the opponent rather than something you want to do on the ladder. He knows that Drogo would likely be taking a third base here, and most of these builds do transition towards a quick third base. He did see 4 gases. He didn't just now check into the main base to see if there's a Twilight Council. So this is really the only move where I might want to play a little bit more carefully if you play on the ladder and you don't know your opponent. But other than that, yes, 100% follow builds. Loko, are you doing coaching right now? No, I'm coaching myself. Serral's coaching all of us, okay? Alright. Alright, so once the transition towards Swarm Host happens, that's when the game becomes a little bit differently. Now, I'm curious to see how this actually transitions. Look, I'm gonna play in the StarCraft 2 campaign. Wait, I'm going to play the StarCraft 2 campaign in French to learn it? Do you think that's a good idea? Yeah. I remember... You guys want to... So, my whole childhood, especially in high school, was all about min-maxing, okay? I played a lot of RuneScape, and I had German in school. Now, I never was particularly great at German. However, 200 IQ, okay? I would switch to the German servers in RuneScape, to the German language in RuneScape, just to be able to learn German a little bit faster. And my grades went up. 200 IQ. I'm not kidding. That was actually a thing. My whole life was about min-maxing for many years. I could only play so many hours on the computer. So I had to, you know, make the most of it. So yeah, you can definitely play video games in another language to learn their... learn that language better, for sure. Alright, so Serral goes straight up right here towards the 4th base, I think. I would imagine. He's actually waiting right here. He doesn't actually have to go Swarm Host here. He could technically also go for a Greater Spire. No, it's gonna... Okay, I was gonna say. It is gonna be Swarm Host and then a 4th base. Okay. So, Swarm Host...
detected.
Then a 4th. So I saw someone ask in the chat, how many roaches does he have at that point? The only roaches he got are the ones that he made defensively to deal with those with those Archon drops. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy, right? It's pretty pretty clean game so far. Okay. So this is when the swarm hosts start up here. He takes a 4th base right after he starts up the swarm hosts. And I wonder how many swarm hosts he actually makes. Sometimes I find myself making too many. Usually I think going like 12 to, I don't know, 12 to 20 or so is not a bad idea. He seems to be going for 13. Yeah, 13, okay. Now this is where the game becomes very hectic. Some of you are gonna be trouble to learn.
Accepted.
Hey, Raced, thank you for the 30 euro. I was just gonna say, so some people are gonna be trouble to learn here that you're not gonna be able to use the all army hold key. but hey, thank you so much. He says, Lowko, I'm feeling generous today. I hope you have a great stream. Thank you so much, Raced. I genuinely appreciate that, man. Thank you. Okay, so analysis from here on out, though, is going to be a little bit more difficult. Basically, you try and not do the all army hotkey shenanigans, and you just play like a god. Ay, the High Templar. Okay, that's game. Gets 4 High Templar for free. That's the, oh my god. Dude, I'm not even a Protoss player, and I cringed a little. Ugh. That hurts so much. Like, you just warp in a couple of High Templar, right? You're like, okay, here's safe enough, I suppose. There's no aggression. That's right the moment when the locusts swoop in. Losing 4 High Templar is very painful for Protoss. Look at the supply count right now as well. Now, Roach Swarmhost obviously is pretty well known to be very supply heavy. I think Roach Swarmhost is amazing if you can keep Protoss below like 140, 150-ish supply. So if you get multiple waves of Locust stuff and you can fight them just like he's doing right here, you can get so much work done. Zerglings run into the natural. And yeah, this is when the game is a disaster. So look at the supply count, right? Like, if Protoss manages to max out against this kind of army composition, they're in a phenomenal spot. But getting those 4 High Templar, super painful. And Protoss is just not going to be able to get to that moment where they want to max out, right? Or where they can. Now, this 1 Dark Templar actually pulling the whole Zerg army back home. That's quite surprising. Guess it's also because Protoss wants to get a little bit aggressive, but still those units in the main base hurt quite a bit. Yeah, and Serral actually killing a lot of workers there too. So as soon as Protoss leaves the map, continues harassing. So by the way, there's no transition here either, right? I think this is one of the mistakes that I personally sometimes make as well. Where I'm like, yeah, but I know that this aggression will probably not work, so I'm not even gonna go fully into it, right? It's really tempting to max out here once with Roach Ravager Swarmhost and then think, okay, I guess I'm gonna start up like a transition towards, I don't know, Brood Lords or something, right? Go Spire, go for a Hive, because you already have the Infestation Pit and all that. But no, he doesn't do that. Instead, he just decides to continue fighting the same fight. I have a tendency to transition a little bit too much, I think. So at this point, it's mostly just rinse and repeat. 4th base does start up here for Serral, or for Drogo. So he's trying to get something done.
New subscriber detected.
Only activating half the Swarmhost there. Really clever move. So he needs to actually shoot his army away, so he doesn't need to send them all. Once again, only activating a couple there as well to deal with that 1 Archon. And then the rest of them go over in that direction. Queen's in a bit of a weird spot. But yeah, economy right here of Drogo is in shambles. Okay. Beautiful game. Really well done. So what we want to do now is look at the second game that they played in the series. And see what the differences are, right? So I'm mostly curious here to see where he's going to send that first Overlord that he makes. So that one was straight en route towards the main gases of the Protoss in the first game, right? I want to see what he does in this one. So here's that Overlord. Where does this one go? It doesn't have a rally point yet. Does it have a rally point? No, I don't think so. But I think those moves are probably very map specific. Yeah, he just rallies it with the hatchery temporarily. Okay. What? Did he see the probe move out? He must have seen the probe move out. Because he already goes straight over to the third base. Hold up, I didn't notice it on the minimap. Changing the colors, maybe that's going to make it a little bit easier to spot. So he doesn't even bother making the natural. Yeah, I must have seen the probe with the first Overlord. Yeah, there it is. Small glance of the probe on the minimap. He's like, okay, you know what? I'm not even going to attempt to take the natural. Just go straight to the third base. And I guess he's okay with this once again, because that now allows him to send that second Overlord, the first one he made, to check on gases again, I think. Okay. Yeah, so as soon as he's forced to take the third base, not too worried about getting cannon rushed. Just go straight into the hatch gas pool. Probably makes an extra group of Zerglings once again as well, so he goes up to 8 or to 6 Zerglings here. So this is almost like a copy-paste of the previous game so far, just on a different map. And I think the next couple minutes probably will look very similar, because I don't think he's got much of an option here. Can't really transition into anything weird. So once again, we're at 100 gas. Does he leave the drones in gas this time? Okay, he does. Oh, actually, sorry. I was looking at the Protoss gas in the top right-hand corner. That's the Zerg. Now he's at 100 gas. Yep. So at 100 gas, he pulls 2 drones out, leaves 1 in. Just like last game. First Overlord goes across the map. I'm assuming the second one. Yep, it's once again rallied right here to check the main gases. So this is very similar. It's just a different map. Once again, sees this warp gate upgrade. And this time around, it doesn't start up, right? So as I briefly discussed during the previous game, in this case, that means it's going to be that Stargate opener from Drogo. And Serral knows that at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see some small differentiations, some small differences right now. And once again, we're thinking about the mental checklist, right? So at this point, it doesn't mean that we can immediately check off the possibility that Protoss is going to go for a Twilight Council opener or a Robotics Facility opener or anything like that. But if he were to go for a Twilight Council or a Robotics Facility opener, he would have deliberately delayed that Warp Gate upgrade. And that obviously immediately means that build is going to be slowing down in general. So it's small things like that that add up over time. Lowko Stats made a 200 IQ move in one of the games. He starts the research and then cancels it to make the Stargate on time. Yeah, so that's a smart move, right? So that's a Protoss player thinking ahead, right? So that's one of the reasons why Protoss or why Stats is one of the smartest players, right? Like those are the things that I would like to see more in StarCraft 2. They're going to be really difficult to pick up on if you're like a commentator, because those moves only happen. But right for like a split second, right? But imagine right now that Drogo would start up the Warp Gate upgrade, or he knows that then at that point Serral is going to send that Overlord away because he doesn't know if it's an Adept or a Stalker first, then cancel Warp Gate and go straight into the Stargate anyway. Now, it's technically not ideal because you would still obviously delay the Stargate, but only by so much. I remember Hearthstone doing the same thing as well, where he would like have the head or the Nexus produce probes. The Overlord would look at it and see that it's producing probes and then cancel the probe whenever it was at like 99%. So he would start up a probe, build it for a little bit, then cancel it, then start up another probe, build it for a little bit, then cancel it. That way he only invests 50 minerals to throw the scouting information of the opponent completely off. Does that make sense? Anyways, there's like a couple of those small moves that are starting to become a thing right now in 2019. That are really cool. But that's just because all of these pro gamers also know how the opponent scouts. And those are like the 200 IQ moves that we'll see a lot more, I think, over the next couple of years. It's these small things that will make some of the losses look stupid. Like, for example, right? If this was one of those moves where he started up that upgrade and then canceled it and went for a Stargate, the commentators of these games would probably make fun of Serral for not making a Spore Crawler, right? Even though he made the correct move, judging with the scouting information that he had. But it's these... Anyways, it's cool. I like it. Anyways, Vision, thank you for the 10 months. I appreciate that. Welcome back. All right. So previously, we saw that first Overlord making its way across the map at 3:30, and then check the gases in the main base. We also saw Serral in these kind of scenarios go for a 3:35-ish lair. However, in this case, he's probably assuming he's up against Stargate. If you want to deal with the first Oracle or Phoenix or whatever, usually you want to go ahead and... Where are those drones going? Ooh, I don't know where they're going. These are deliberately sent out on the map. Oh, he's gonna mine these. Okay, so this is actually gonna be an all-in from Serral. I've been talking about this for a little bit, actually. Okay, so... I was gonna say maybe he's gonna start up like Spore Crawlers at 3:30 to deal with any kind of Oracle play. This is something I've mentioned in the past as well. I've never actually seen a pro gamer do this before. So you know how a lot of Protoss players on this map specifically like to wall off right here at the big ramp? That's fine and all, but there's technically a second entrance into your, well, main area, and that is by mining these two minerals. If you do that, and I think that's what Serral plans on doing, Zerglings can just flood in. I've never seen a pro gamer do this before, so I'm not sure how this plays out. Anyways, if he wants to deal with the Oracle, he would have to start up Spore Crawlers here in a second. So he's making a lot of Zerglings here. There's the Spore Crawler. So that's just purely based off of that little bit of scouting information on that Warp Gate upgrade. Those Spore Crawlers. Okay, sees the Oracle as well. Whoa, look at that Drogo. 200 IQ. He's like, Serral, you never make more than a couple of Zerglings at this point in the game. Why would you have more than what you usually have? Normally at this point you have like 4, maybe 6. Maybe 6 because I forced that third base. But he's looking at it, he's like, well, I mean, that's more than 6, right? Something's not right. 200 IQ. Love that. Really cool stuff. So now he did not activate the Pulsar Beam in the mineral line of Zerg, which is what Serral kind of hopes for. And instead he is gonna save that energy to deal with these links, which actually puts him probably in a pretty good spot. Second Oracle comes out as well, and Serral's already droning up again. Okay, so it's an attempted move. If you do this kind of thing against the latter Protoss, I can guarantee you most of the games are won by this point. Because they would just blindly send that Oracle across the map and start zapping away your minerals. And then these links would just be able to deal so much damage. Clean defense right here by Drogo. It's cool though, right? Because like a lot of these top-level StarCraft games really are looking more and more like chess. It's a lot more strategic and a lot more players trying to outwit each other. It's pretty cool. Like nowadays there's a lot more strategy in the real-time strategy genre, I guess. It used to be like who can ever or whoever can like execute a build faster wins. But now it's a lot more, well, everyone's really good at executing things. So I guess we just assume that you know that I know that we're both gonna be perfect, and then it comes down to strategic moves. I mean, not down per se. I mean, there's still gonna be some macro advantages and disadvantages here and there, but still pretty cool. All right, so against this Stargate-based opener, we see Serral going for a third, or rather for the Spore Crawlers, obviously. And then a lair, I think about 4:30. Usually about 4:30 to 5 minutes, third base is quite... Or lair, rather, is pretty common. So I think he's mostly just droning up. He's also busy microing these Zerglings and stuff, so he might be a little bit later on it. Alright, so there goes the lair. And he just keeps droning. So it's a similar theme as last game. Basically get full saturation before you start making proper army units. Now he lost all those Zerglings, so he needs to have a clump of units out for scouting. And also to just figure out what Protoss is going for. Sees the oracles over here. Alright, so here's that little bit of harassment with the triple oracle build. There's a lot of queens out already, so Serral should be okay. Although, obviously, these oracles can be quite scary anyway. These overlords, by the way, or this overlord, by the way, never checked the main base because the Zerglings got in. I think otherwise he probably would have done the same thing as we saw in the first game.
Detected.
Where he sent them in anyway, just to make sure. Thank you very much, Entlos, for the 2 months. Alright, so he arrives at a lair, and then he goes immediately into... so this game, the Roach Warren is skipped. He goes immediately into a Baneling Nest and a Hydra Den. So this is a bit of a different strat. There's also going to be an Overlord drop over here. That's what makes Serral kind of scary as well. Like, a lot of pros have their favorite unit composition or, like, their preferred style of playing. Serral's really good at playing all of the styles. So rather than playing, like, Roach Hydra, Roach Ravager every game, Roach Swarm Host every game, he goes this game into Hydraling Bane instead. It's a bit of a larger map. I think that's probably the main reason. It's really difficult to go Hydraling Bane on a bigger map. Or on a smaller map, rather. Just because sometimes, I mean, Zealots can move across really easily and get some scouting information. Sees a couple of extra gateways going up. He sees the extra gases. All he really needs to know. So now the 4th base has already started up as well. I'm assuming he's going to go straight into either like a hive or maybe denying the 4th base of Protoss. I'm curious to see how many drones he's going to make here. A lot of Overlords here. That's a ton of Overlords. I think that's actually a small mistake. Yeah, so it's actually going to be a 2nd evolution chamber as well. So once again, the Zerglings. Somehow they managed to always sneak in. I don't know how that happens. They don't get anything done, but... So he goes up to 76 drones here. So basically 3 base saturation. Or 4 base, rather. I guess 3.5 technically, right? No gases over there, so he's at 6 gases. But the majority of those drones are minerals.
New subscriber detected.
Hey, I'm ready. Thank you very much for the 27. I appreciate that. All right. So 4th base gets started here. Serral should figure this out. I wonder what he wants to respond here with. So he already has the infestation pit going up. It's honestly really difficult. I think a lot of pros would probably try and push here. And I think that would be the correct move as well to make on the ladder. But it's very difficult to pull that kind of move off against really good, like, Protoss players. Drogo has Storm. He's technically got everything he needs here to deal with it. It's just really easy for Protoss to accidentally butcher this engagement. But I don't think Drogo would do so. Well, he could, but... Yeah, so instead, Serral's just playing it safe. He goes up towards a hive here, and then also a spire, indicating he wants to go Greater Spire, and he just goes home. So he's just playing the macro game from here on out. I think everyone else should probably commit to this attack. So he's gonna try anyway, but he's already, I mean, he's already at 85 workers. This is by no means an all-in. I guess this is mostly actually just to create a distraction for these Banelings to roll in as well. Yeah, so this is a complete feint attack. He doesn't actually want to fight, I don't think. I mean, unless he gets a really good engagement, but he shouldn't. Well, manages to get a pretty good shot off. Yeah, I don't think he should, though. Yeah, so that was basically as good as he could have gotten it, and it didn't really do that much, right? He lost a lot more there. Anyways, so this was mostly just a stepping stone here to keep that Protoss army a little smaller, so he can go up towards that Greater Spire. And obviously, there's not a lot of Zerg units that are good against Archon, Immortal, Zealot, Storm, other than, well, Brute Lords. Brute Lords are phenomenal. So there's the Brutes. More Zerglings as well coming up. I asked Serral at Home Story Cup, and he says, yeah, as soon as you have Brute Lords out, you can just start going for a lot of static defense. And just go from there. Just make a lot of static defense, and then after you go Brute Lords, always keep some army supply caught up in Hydraling Bane. But then at some point you can transition quite smoothly to a lot of Infestors as well. So this is not the cleanest game by any means, but he still has a ton of economy, and he still hasn't lost that much. Tempest also start up here. The thing is, though, when you look at these kind of games, right? For the majority of it, you can try and copy it. It's just that, you know, obviously the average player that that you go up against on the ladder is by no means nearly as good as Drogo. Drogo is very good. All right. So I think that about sums up the Zerg versus Protoss matchup. This always gets me excited to ladder, though, right? And then the first game I play, I get Cannon Rush. The second game I play, I get 8-gate Zealot all in. It's like, no. I wanted to play sophisticated unit compositions. Come on, dude. Let me play. But yeah, it's those small moves that that make the difference. And that's why the first couple of minutes of the game are super important. So he actually goes for more brutes than normal. Normally we see only 8 brute lords or so. This is 11 brutes. May have just morphed in a couple of the corruptors that were low hit points. Anyways, at this point it's pretty much a disaster already. I'm quite surprised actually he decided to go for the move here. So if we go back, I think a lot of players after this whole shenanigans goes down probably just play the full-on macro game from here on out. I know I would. I would probably go up to infestors and everything else as well. Serral actually decides to go for a timing attack. So he knows that I think Tempests are being made. I mean, he should know. I guess Tempests, though, alone are not going to be that scary, right? If you just lose so many of your big value units, the next follow-up attack does make sense, because Protoss does have to spend a lot of gas to get those Archons and High Templar and whatnot out again. So I guess this follow-up push does make sense. So maybe I actually did plan on going for the Infested Brute Lord style. Maybe he just tested the waters and then he realized, wait a second. I can just go all out here with the attack and win. So he maxes out, I think, once more on, I guess, Zergling, Hydralisk, Corruptor, Brute Lord. And I think if this fight would have not worked out, that's the moment where he would have transitioned towards Brute Lord Infestor, which is the ultimate unit composition for Zerg. He's just testing the waters here. Yeah, and I think this just happens to work. Such aggressive play though here with the Corruptors, right? Pretty crazy. Anyways, yeah, there's too many brutes here. Too many brutes for Drogo to deal with. Since all of his air units are dealing with the Corruptors, and there were still enough Corruptors left over, he didn't have like that critical mass yet. Not a lot of static defense here either. It's just gonna be barely enough. Cool. All right, cool. So that, I think, wraps up the Zerg versus Protoss matchup for now. Got quite a lot of notes here. I think next up, we're going to have a look at Zerg versus Terran. Now, I want to cast the Zerg versus, or the Serral versus Time series. I also want to cast one game of Serral versus Innovation, which means that we only have one game here to look at, which is going to be this one. For Zerg versus Terran. I personally feel quite good right now about my ZVT, but maybe we can find out some details once again. I always feel like Zerg versus Protoss, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I always kind of feel like Zerg versus Protoss especially is really unforgiving. It's really easy to get super caught up in ZVT. Or in ZVP rather, and just like make one small error and then immediately the game ends. In Zerg versus Terran, you have a little bit of room for Infestor. Or for Arrow, rather. Sorry, I saw someone writing Infestor. Loco, what else is good than Brute Lord Infestor? Brute Lord Infestor is like the ultimate unit composition for Zerg, yes. So, Brute Lord Infestor with like 20 or so supply caught up in Hydras, Zerglings, and Banelings for counterattacks and for cleanups. And then a lot of Spore Crawlers and Spine Crawlers too. But you don't want to quite max out. Like, that's what people used to do back in the day. You don't quite want to max out on just Brute Lords and just Infestors. Because you need to have units ready to do counterattacks and to, like, clean up different kinds of bits of aggression here and there. Yeah. Alright, so this barcode right here is Innovation. Let us have a look. Gonna pour some more water for my ASMR channel. Actually, I won't do that because I don't want to make everyone go to the bathroom. That won't help with my viewership. Alright. Let's have a look. Cheeky Serral over here. So this is a 13-12 actually from Serral. So that's a 13 gas, 12 spawning pool. Oh no, never mind. Wait, was it 14-14? I like how we looked at it a couple times and I still didn't catch it. Yeah, it's actually a 14-14. It's like we're going back to 2011. It's what everyone always played. Lowko, too late. I'm already going. Ah, man. I'm sorry. Alright, so 14-14. It's like the safest build in the book. Technically speaking, inferior to many of the other openers that Zerg can go for. But obviously, like, Innovation has been going for a lot of 2, 3, 4 barracks rushes. And this is one of those strategies that just hard counters that, right? So if this were to be a proxy cheese from Innovation, this would basically be game over immediately. That does make this game a little bit harder to read, because this is not something you necessarily want to play on the ladder unless you experience a lot of cheese. So I want to see how many Zerglings he wants to go for here. So it's 8, then he hits a supply block, so I'm assuming he's going to go for an Overlord and then an expansion. Maybe expansion first, then Overlord. Yeah. So he makes Zerglings until 22, then expansion, then Overlord. Yep, Overlord. And obviously, if it was a cheese from Terran, we would have seen those units already come in. So he sees where the Reaper is headed here with the Zerglings, which means they're all gonna run into, or with the Overlord rather, he's gonna run them all the way towards the other side. And this is mostly just to be an absolute nuisance to Terran. If they go, so Terran can open up a couple different ways, right? They can go, say if it's a 1-1-1, right? They can go for like depot, barracks, gas, command center, factory. And usually if they do so, they can go, when the barracks finishes, they can go Reaper Marine, or they can go Marine or Reaper straight up into a factory. It's about a 50-50. I think I see people going Reaper Marine a lot more often than people going Reaper Factory. It technically delays your first Hellions a little bit, but it's much safer if you go for the Marines, just in case of Zergling openers like this. So this is a bit of a disaster right now, because look at where that Reaper is at, right? So the Reaper arrives on the other side of the map right now, and it's gonna have to make its way all the way back home. There was a Marine mate, because this is Innovation. Innovation usually does those kind of things. But still though, Zergling speed is gonna finish up here in a second. And actually, good move right there as well with those SCVs. So this kinda, well, absolutely creates an advantage here for the Zerg. That's pretty big. Wow. Makes you wonder why nobody else goes for these kind of builds. Yeah, this is a game against Innovation. So Command Center was already cancelled. Serral doesn't see it cancelled, but since he sees a new Command Center building in the main, that's the reason why he hasn't bothered sending the Zerglings down again. He's just gonna double check, but there's no way Innovation would have the money to go for a third Command Center that early. So he knew that it was cancelled. Right now he's in a really clean spot. This kind of game though, so I like this kind of game. It's just that the whole game now is different, right? I mean, now we're playing a scrappy game of Zerg versus Terran, where all timings that we normally have are completely thrown out of the window, because everything is going to be different. This is one of the things that Serral didn't used to do. So he was never really the kind of guy that would go for the super aggressive plays. But then he showed, hey, wait a second, I can play aggressive as well and completely play a wacky game, and I'm still better than you anyway. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, it only works when Terran doesn't SCV scout, I suppose. If they go for an SCV scout, obviously, then it's a clear counter as well. Alright. So there's the Baning Nest coming up at about 4 minutes. I don't think the timings differ too much. So the scout right here with the Overlord, normally that one goes up at about 3:30. That's when you send in the Overlord. This one was sent in about a half minute later. And that's just, I guess, adjusting for the different builds here for Terran. So 14 gas, 14 pool. Links till 22. Plus queen. 22 lair, 22 Overlord. Okay. Then he goes for, I guess, about 10 links in total. And then the game goes completely different. So he still scouts. So normal scout timing with Overlord is around 3 minutes and 30 seconds. This game, it's 4 minutes instead. And I think that's primarily there to make up for that early game start. So the Baling Nest started up about 4 minutes. Normally, if you want to deal with like a Hellbat push, you start it up at about 350. Once again, everything is slowed down just a little bit. Oh, sorry, not lair. No. I meant hatchery. Sorry. Thank you for catching that. I meant 22 hatchery. Such a quick lair would be insane. No, that would be a little bit ridiculous. Yeah, so ideally, that's a good point. Ideally, you want to see if Terran is still producing right here out of that factory. So that's one of the reasons why you want to scout with this Overlord. First off, to figure out what build you're going up against. Now, he did see the factory here, so he's probably assuming it's a 1-1-1, but sometimes there's some variations, so that's what he's looking for here as well. You're also looking for the production inside of that factory. So, most of the time, Terran only goes for 6 Hellions. Sometimes, though, they will go for 8 Hellions. So right here, he sees production still inside of this factory. That's going to be the 5th and the 6th Hellion, because this whole game is a little bit thrown off. But if you see additional production after that, you know that it's very likely going to be, you know, that Hellbat push or something along those lines. So the Terran player here is innovation, yes. Yep, so there's no additional Hellion production right now, so he knows that it's not going to be a Hellbat push, or at the very least not heavy Hellion play. So I guess that already kind of puts him into the direction right here that it could be... It could still technically be mech play, but I think for the most part, if you see a Terran opening like this, and they don't do continuous Hellion production, it's very likely going to be bio play. Okay, so a little bit of aggression here and there. So once again, Zerglings. They do see more Hellions there, so I guess that kind of makes it difficult to know whether or not it's going to be bio or mech. Yeah, he goes for a couple safety banelings and also a few overseers, and then about 6 minutes into the game is when we finally see those extra evolution chambers, or the first evolution chambers rather, the extra structures I suppose, but that's quite late, right? So we still don't have any decision here as far as tech goes. So he did make a baneling nest obviously, but no baneling speed, no Hydra Den, no Roach Warren, none of that. So now he finally starts a baneling speed, but all of that is quite late. And I think that's primarily due to the fact he doesn't really know necessarily if it's going to be bio or mech at this point, so it's really hard to make that call. He does start up melee upgrades right here, and then also the baneling speed, so he's assuming that it's going to be bio, but it's always a little difficult to scout. So is he going to go Hydra then at all? So now he knows for sure. Is this going to be a Hydra Den at all? Okay, so it's actually, you know what? Like, what I'm gathering here from these games is that I sometimes have a tendency to get my tech too quickly. It's totally fine just to go lair, just for overseers. He did that in both the ZVP and then also this one. Just for the overseers. It's pretty expensive overseers. Lowko, I like this game a lot. I enjoy it so much watching, but I'm scared to play because I lack knowledge. Yeah, knowledge is hard, man, in StarCraft. I feel like I lack a lot of knowledge too, but I play this game nearly every day. It's super tricky. There's so many small moves. So look right there, right? You see that small camera move there with Serral? So he starts up the evolution chain, or the Hydra Den, and then he goes back into the main base here of Terran to see what he scouted with that Overseer. Here in a second. There. He's counting structures right here. So he's like, okay, that's 5 barracks here in total. Right? But what exactly does 5 barracks mean? Like, what exactly does that mean? Well, he knows it's not 7 barracks. I guess if you scout 5 barracks, it's very, like, it's not 7 or 8 barracks in total. So I guess that means there's likely got to be a 4th base here from innovation. But that's the kind of stuff that's really hard to read, right? And those are the kind of things you can really only learn by just playing a million games. I've not arrived at that level, where I need to know exactly the amount of, like, units that they have as well at that time. So usually Terran goes 5 gateways and then into 7 or 8. Or they go 5 gateways into a 4th base. But it's really difficult to know those timings, because then you have to make the assumption as well that your opponent plays close to perfect, and it's just... the game gets much more complicated. Well, I meant barracks, sorry. Did I say gateways? Ah, you know what I meant. You know what I meant. We're arguing semantics, okay? Haha, Lowko misspoke. Haha, haha. Let's focus on what Lowko misspoke on. Ah, Lowko made a mistake. Idiot. I love it. Ah, Lowko said gateways. Let's just skip over the part where he was talking about knowledge. But no. We'll focus on the fact he said gateways. Ah, idiot. Alright, so it's gonna be a Hydraling Bane here. It's actually quite a late Hydra Den. And he actually goes for the Infestation Pit here quite early, all things considered. So the Infestation Pit gets started, so 2-2 can start up immediately, and then immediate Hive as well, I think. So if you start up 2-2 and then immediate Hive, you can continue with 3-3 immediately as well once the +2/+2 finishes. Well, usually you start up the Infestation Pit around the time you start up the lair. Or the +2/+2, but you get what I mean. Alright. So he might actually delay it right here, just because in this game there's some Terran aggression and he needs to spend his money on that. Pushes it back. I'm assuming this is when he starts up 2-2 and a Hive. I would imagine. He's looking at the rocks instead. Those were fine rocks. Okay, there's the Hive. So he prioritizes Hive over +2. That's quite curious. I think he's delaying 2-2 here just because Terran's playing aggressively. Then he does go for an extra base as well, so this might actually just be a mistake. Do you think Terran or Serral makes mistakes? Nah, I don't think so. There's no way, right? Nah, that's not possible, right? Nah, I don't think Serral's human either. I was just trying to check, guys, if you thought that he was human or not. Okay, 2-2 has started up. So he's actually got the Evo Chambers hotkeyed. I heard his programming is perfect. Are you suggesting Serral is Alpha Star? Because that's what I heard. Alright, now, in this game, it looks like he wants to go ahead and play Brute Lord. Or not Brute Lords, but go for Ultralisks. You guys know my feelings about Ultralisks. I've said it time and time again. He goes for an Ultralisk Cavern here. I think Ultralisk Caverns are great if you want to lose the game. Now, don't get me wrong. People like Serral make it look like a great choice. However, I have not seen a lot of people below the pro level have any success with Ultras ever. Unless they're already very far ahead. I think Ultralisk can be good if you're playing defensively. If you're forced to play defensively, that's when sometimes ultras can work out and you're kind of in like a rough spot. Sometimes you can like come back. And I think you're also good at like driving it home, you know? When you're already really far ahead and you want to put the nail in the coffin, that's sometimes when ultras can be nice too. But for the most part, I found personally that it's just too hard to play. I think in pretty much all scenarios where you're considering going ultras, you should probably go for brute lords instead. If your opponent is playing mostly Marines, though, it's very good. It's just that Terran has so many counters, right? Like, they can go Marauders, they can go even Siege Tanks, they can go for Thors, they can go for Liberators, Ghosts. There's a ton of counters, and they don't have that many counters to, what is it called? Brute Lords. So I think Brute Lords in general are just a safer choice for most opponents, or for most players. But yeah, this is Serral doing a very delicate dance. Never moving off creep, always pushing back as soon as Terran tries to move on creep. He actually goes for Infestors and Ultralisks. I like that a lot better. Very difficult to play though, once again. Yeah, this is ×2 speed. Ooh, beautiful catch. Okay, we'll go to normal speed here. This is in-game speed. Still pretty fast. APM-wise, we're currently at 460 average, which means that Serral is spamming about 8-9 buttons a second here, on average for the last 13 minutes. And obviously, he significantly speeds up the longer the game goes. So, yeah, the more, like, the more things there are to do, the faster his APM usually gets. But that goes for pretty much all the pros, though. Not Alpha Star. That's one of the ways, apparently, you can figure out Alpha Star. He has the same amount of APM the whole game long, and the same for the effective APM. So if you look at the... There's like a button, right? Yeah, EPM, effective APM, effective actions per minute. Apparently that one is the same for Alpha Star. Like all of its effective actions, or all of its actions are effective, so it doesn't spam. So that's one way you can figure it out. Humans can't have perfect effectiveness. I mean, technically they can, but realistically not very common. Anyway, so it's gonna be Infestors and Brute Lords, or Infestors and Ultras rather. They can be very good if your multitasking is very good. Generally speaking though, would not recommend playing it unless you're at the top level. At which point, you probably don't need to hear me say that. And thank you very much, Hygotron, for the support. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, Serral's pretty good at playing this video game. Alright, cool. Yeah, there's not too much to look at over here, right? So this game started up with him in charge with the 14-14. And then 10 Zerglings in total. And then that Overlord scout to confirm what was going on. Quite delayed tech, right? Quite delayed tech, but fast hive. So, slower Hydras. So for me personally, I need to go slower Hydra upgrades. And Hydras in general, to be honest. Can delay Evos slightly, but immediate hive at 1-1. So, we had a look at Zerg versus Protoss. We had a look at Zerg versus Terran. Only one matchup left, and that is Zerg versus Zerg. The only one we can really have a look at right here is this one. Alright, so yeah, he lost the first one on Acropolis. Lowko, I think he did that on purpose for dramatic effect. Yeah, that's probably it. What is Serral's win-loss ratio? We can have a look. Ah, there you go, yeah. So under these filters, Serral is... Can we do like a data range? So Serral started dominating, I think after WESG 2018. So if we go back a little bit, say from like May 2018 to, well, today it's early August, right? Let's put it up to, I don't know, the current date, which is the 5th of August. If you filter it to those days, yeah, it's pretty insane. Look at that. So Serral in these matches, under these filters, has a win rate of 91.61%. That's insane. And that's not players that are low level, right? Like, you can have a look right here at the list of players he faces off against. That's not a low, like, that's not a... Those are not easy opponents. It's not playing ladder games. His ladder ratio is much higher once again, but like... Yeah, it's pretty good. 91.61% in his peak. Which would put him at some pretty insane win rates over here as well. So that's this is matches and this is games. So this is individual maps, which puts him at a bit of a lower win rate. So he's got 77% win rate right here in maps, but almost 92% win rate in series. Pretty sick. Anyways, enough fanboying. So this is the first game of the series. Serral actually loses the map here, so we're gonna cruise through this one just to see roughly what happened. I haven't seen this series. I have no intention of casting this series either. I'm assuming this is just gonna be a mistake or a misread in the build. The website I just had a look at is called Aligulek. Don't worry, whenever I Google it as well, I also... Yeah, he's just misreading here, I guess. Well, he's actually not. He knows that it's gonna be cheese. Anyways, the website, I always mistype it as well. Nowadays, though, I know how to type it properly. Yeah, so he just makes a little micro mistake there and it's game over. I mean, the game goes on for a while longer, but... Even a God Emperor can bleed. So now he's playing the game from a disadvantage. It's difficult to come back from a disadvantage in StarCraft. Let's have a look. So continuous scouting here. It's funny as well, because if you look at the minimap here constantly, you can see the superior play of Serral, but he's behind in this series right from the get-go, and it makes it hard to come back. Well, actually, he's not in an absolutely terrible position here. I might actually mess up here a little while later as well, but if you look at the scouting and just the map presence in general, it's far superior. And that's even amongst pro gamers notable. It's Aligulek. That is A-I-I-G-U-L-A-C. I think I pronounced that correctly, or I spelled that out correctly. Aligulek. I don't know why they gave it that name either. I have no clue. But it's by far the best statistics website for StarCraft. Yeah, so like look at the small advantages and disadvantages from earlier. Right now, Serral just ends up at a lower amount of supply, and that's game. All right, so let's have a look at the other one. So I've had a lot of games, or I've had a look at a lot of games that Serral played recently for Zerg vs. Zerg, because my ZVZ has kind of been bad. I've been feeling a lot more confident about it. I think the main takeaway that I've noticed here myself for ZVZ in the games that I've seen is a 330 Evo, 4-minute lair. 4-minute Roach Warren, 430 lair. This is what I've been following, give or take, because it differs per map and per situation and per matchup. Depends on the amount of workers and whatnot you got. But I noticed that I was going for an Evo chamber much later than I ideally should. I was also not timing up my Roach Warren properly. I would usually go lair first and then Roach Warren, and my game was just inferior. And not optimized whatsoever, so that's one of the reasons why we want to have a look at these games. I'm pretty confident in my ZVT and ZVP, working on my ZVZ right now. So we'll have a look at this one. So look, what you're saying is you need the Baneling bus to win against Serral. I mean, you can try. It's probably your best bet. If I were to win 100 games, right? Say I have to play 100 games against Serral. And if I win one, I get $1 million. I will cheese pretty much every game. Because the chances of him accidentally slipping up are going to be much higher than playing him in a macro game. It's just the nature of the beast, right? Like, I know that I know that I can execute a cheese perfectly. I know I'm not going to be able to play a 20-minute long game perfectly. And he's more likely to play the 20-minute long game perfectly and then make a small slip up in the first couple of minutes if I play cheesy. But that's kind of it, right? Look, what do you think about drag scrolling? Is it important? I actually do have drag scrolling on my middle mouse key. Yeah, I use it early on to put camera hotkeys down. So if this was like in my game, I would shift F1 right now. Drag scroll to the center of the main of the second base, shift F2, shift F3, shift F4, and then later on, once I build the base, that's when I click on the base, click on the portrait, and then redo the hotkey group once again. So I know that all of those camera location hotkeys are going to be in the center. Other than that, I'm not sure. I think that's about the extent of the all army, or rather not the all army hotkey, of the drag scrolling. I don't think anyone else uses it in any other moment though. But maybe they do. Those things are very much so personal preference. If it's not limiting your other performances in game, should be pretty straightforward. All right, so he always does one Zergling scout early on. He sets 2 links across the map, scouts around for a quick Evo chamber. Now the timing of that Evo right there for Serral is actually very quick. Was that an Evo chamber or a bailing nest? Yeah, it's actually an Evo chamber right here. Okay, so this is like a 245 Evo. Oh, okay, so I was wondering about this. So he will usually go for about a 330 evolution chamber if his opponent is going for a standard 3-hatch opener. In this game, however, the opponent is not gonna go for a 3-hatch opener because the third hatchery should have already gone down. So instead he decides to throw up a evolution chamber. This is specifically done when dealing with someone who's opening up 2 base. So when facing off 2 base, Evo chamber instead of bailing nest. So normally this would be the timing where he throws down the bailing nest, right? Normally you go for the bailing nest right here at about 50 gas. So we have the third base go down. And that's usually when you go for the third hatchery. Or for the bailing nest rather. And right now he's like, okay, there's no third hatchery here. He waits a couple more seconds. And then he goes for the evolution chamber instead. Okay, cool. So he gives it a few seconds of play. Some players will not go for like the 30 third base. So Serral pretty much always goes for the 30 hatchery. Like 30 supply hatchery. Some players will go like 31, 32, which I think is why he's not immediately planting down the Evo chamber here. Yeah, because, I mean, sometimes you will see it a little bit later when he's like, okay, now it's just going to be 2-base play instead. Cool. Very cool. Loco, where can I download these replays? I retweeted the tweet just now. So if you go to my Twitter, twitter.com/LowkoTV, I've been trying to share the major replay packs whenever they're available, whenever I find them. So you can just, yeah, check my Twitter. There's a link right there. It's basically just a retweet, though, of, like, the official page. Alright, cool. So I was wondering about this, because I've played this standard build a couple times as well, and then you go up against players that are playing 2-base openers. So this is actually also an important scout. I didn't notice this when we first checked it. If you pay attention here to that spawning pool, you can see it's not doing its little dance. If you compare it right here to Serral's Evo chamber, or rather his spawning pool, it's doing like a little, I don't know. Whatever, what is that? It does like, it vibrates or something. I don't know what it does. But you can notice it's not upgrading. He also sees that there's no evolution chamber here. He doesn't see the one that's probably going to go down at the front. So he probably assumes this is going to be a quick... It's undulating. Yeah, it's jiggling. Exactly. Anyways, so he knows that it's not a super quick lair. So he should be okay. Now I'm actually curious to see how he responds here. So how many drones does he get? So when it comes to 2-base Zerg plays, there's a bunch of them, right? There's like just a straight up +1 attack Roach speed timing attack. There's Roach Zergling all-ins. There's Nidus Worm Roaches. There's 2-base Muta play. There's even like 2-base Swarm Host Lurker, like stupid builds like that too. Those last ones not very common. But I've been struggling against this a little bit because sometimes it can be kind of confusing. So he does go...
Detected.
Yo, Nigds! Thank you for the Twitch Prime. He does go right here for a group of Zerglings. I think that's primarily here for scouting. Can't really send in the Overlords right now because there's queens on the perimeter, so you don't really know... Like, you can't really send them too far forward. He does go +1 missile, okay. So 10 links still at link speed. So normally what Serral does in those games is he goes for 4 to 5 groups of Zerglings when link speed finishes up, which is right when the first injects pop off. So he goes for about 5 groups of Zerglings. Then 2 of those Zerglings sit at home and morph into Banelings. 1 or 2 morph into Banelings, or maybe none, but he leaves them at home because then he can morph them into Banelings just in case if that's necessary. In this case, it's 10 Zerglings, and I think they're all going to be sent across the map. And then also a Roach Warren pretty quickly. So this one is going to be +1 missile. So he skipped the Baneling Nest here entirely. And then the Roach Warren. What's the timing on that Roach Warren? I'm trying to figure out how he calculates this, or how he decides to go for the Roach Warren. So there's +1 missile when he has the resources. I guess when he has about like 12 drones or so on minerals. I'll just write it down to 330 Roach Warren, which is right after the +1 attack starts up. So right after the +1 attack starts up. So that's after the Zerglings as well. Cool. So this is a specific response to a specific situation. It's pretty uncommon actually to go 2 base openers right now, it feels like. So I'm curious to see. Like, it used to be really common a couple months ago. So he's also scouting around here. Look at that Zergling going across in the top section and then also in the bottom section. That's just to see if it's like a hidden base. So I think that's also the main reason why he's going for these Zerglings.
New subscriber
just to scout.
detected.
Thank you, Brick. 37 months. So sick. So he sees the wall off right there. It's a pretty mediocre wall off, right? Like, what's that wall off? It should be further forward. Anyways. Oh, the Zerglings get in. Okay, that's a disaster. Sees roaches right here as well. Starts up a couple of spine crawlers. Okay, so did he save up any resources here? Yeah, so he's actually not spending money. So he's got larva here. No, wait, hold up. I was looking at the wrong one. I wish I could disable the red production tab here. That would make it much easier. Alright. So this is when he starts up the group. The Zerglings +1 missile, Roach Warren, right? Okay. Does he save up any resources at this point? Because Serral usually doesn't seem to like saving up resources unless he absolutely needs to. His opponent was doing that. Yeah, he does. No, he doesn't. Never mind. No, he just keeps drowning. Keeps drowning. I guess that's because there's so many different options and so many different kinds of 2-base all-ins for Zerg. You don't know if it's going to be 2-base Muta or something like that, so you can't really halt drone production here that much either. Alright, so he sees the roaches spawning here. Immediately starts up a couple roaches and then also 2 spines. Any drone killed right now is huge. Okay. Does he cancel +1 missile? So the links get in here. He sees the roaches. This is like one of my pet peeves, okay, when casting StarCraft. This may seem like the dumbest thing ever, okay? But bear with me. You know how, like, Serral's production tab right here is at the top section of the 2? Yet he spawned...
detected.
He spawned at the bottom section of the map. His opponent spawned in the top section of the map, and he's at the bottom section of the production tab. This triggers me to no end. I know it's really dumb, but I have this all the time. Like, whenever I cast a game in the WCS 3.0 layout, I always have to switch the name tags. Just because I want to have the player that spawned in the top section to be at the top section of the production tab. And like, dude, Wardy pointed this out. Wardy pointed this out to me, and ever since then, it's been triggering me to know tomorrow. I never noticed it before that point. I'm sorry for those of you that can't unsee it now. Anyways, Skittles, thank you very much. He says, Lowko, I love the content as always. Wishing you the best. Hey, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. All right. So he does not cancel +1. No, okay. He does transfer the drones back. So drones from the third base goes to the natural right here. And right now he's in a bit of a deficit, obviously. So look at the drone count though, right? So it's 38 workers here for Serral versus 23. Okay, so just buying time right now, knowing he's so far ahead with the... And he does actually cancel... He does cancel +1. Okay, alright. So, in case of emergency... Emergency... Spines... Evo wall... Cancel... +1 upgrade. Cool. I was gonna say, like, keeping that +1 Evo chamber upgrade seems a little bit greedy. This is a complete all-in, so losing a bunch of drones is okay as long as he holds on. So those spine crawlers, man. Ooh. Okay, so that group of Zerglings was key here, right? Because without that group of Zerglings, he would have been in a disaster. Like, he would have had a disaster here. Right now, since Defender's advantage is huge, he's totally fine. Even tries to create a bit of a semi-wall right there with those roaches in the choke. And that is certainly going to be a clean hold. Super clean. Woo, nice. So I just want to double check when these Zerglings went out. So those 10 links, I think they were produced by the time that link speed finished up. So that's the normal time where he goes for 5 groups of Zerglings. Yeah, so it's the first inject. So notice these first injects pop off. 5 of those larvae get produced into Zerglings. Alright, pretty straightforward. And they're just rallied straight across. Yeah, that was super clean. And these are the kind of things, right, where you can try and reinvent the wheel. I brought that up earlier, but these are the kind of things that you should just copy. I can guarantee you that Serral has experimented with making those Zerglings earlier, with making them a little bit later, with skipping them entirely. You shouldn't. just don't. Just copy it straight up. When link speed finishes, 5 groups of Zerglings. If your opponent opened up with a standard 3 hatch and they're playing Ling Bane, leave 2 Zerglings at home so you can make the Baneling nests. Or the Banelings, rather. If your opponent is going 2 base, rather than going for the Baneling nest, go for the Evolution Chamber. Follow up with +1 missile quickly in case it's going to be a roach-based opener from your opponent that's like more mid-game focused. If you have to, in case of emergency, cancel the +1, make non-stop roaches, and put down a couple of spine crawlers. Thank you very much. N123AS. I appreciate that. Alright, so we're going to have a look at one more game. And that is the final one of this series, which is New Repugnancy. Actually, this is game 2. Loko, who are we coaching? We're coaching everyone. I'm coaching myself. Alright. What's going on, Normando? So the funny thing is, right, people have been studying these Serral games for over a year and a half now, ever since he sort of peaked. And he's still close to undefeated in a lot of these tournaments. I mean, he's been a little bit more mortal in 2019, but still very strong. Loko, how presumptuous of you to assume that you are everyone and Loko is it? No, that's not what I said. You think Serral lost because Protoss OP? What about the fact that stats is really good? Have you considered that? It's like, no. Best Protoss in the world. Not very good. It's Protoss OP, Loko. I can guarantee you, I've been playing Stalkers and Void Rays the whole year, and I've been making cannons and all that, right? I can guarantee you that activating Prismatic Alignment against Zerglings is my top tier move. I have analyzed Protoss OP. Alright, buddy. Alright. It's true though, right? Like, I feel like most of the people that complain that Protoss is weak are the ones that are playing Stalker, Void Ray, Dark Templar, Cannon Rush, right? Whereas, like, those are like the only units that the top level Protoss players really barely ever focus on. It's kind of funny. I've always kind of found that ironic. Anyways. let us go ahead and have a look right there at these games as well. So this is the final game we'll have a look at for today. At least as the ones for Serral, or as the ones for Serral go. Lowko, did you just say Protoss is OP? I thought it was Terran. Oh, come on. Alright, so I've been making a lot of jokes about this. But this is a good example of the grass being greener on the other side. If you think Terran is OP, go ahead, play Terran. Give it a try. Just play it for a couple days. See how it fares you. See how it goes. Whatever race you don't play always seems to be OP. Right? It's a nasty reality. The race you don't play is always the one that's overpowered, man. It sucks. Ugh. Now, what we can say, though, if you look at the hard facts, right? Premier Tournaments, StarCraft 2. Yeah, random is OP. Random is the only true OP one. All right, look. If you look at Premier events for 2019 so far. All right, these are all for 2019. We have Zerg. Okay, hold up. Let's keep track, right? So Zerg, Protoss, Terran. So Zerg has one right there by Raynor. Neep. Hold up. Let me do like an I. There you go. Protoss is 1-1. Maru is 1-1. Su is 1-1. Innovation 1-1. Classic 1-1. Now we have Dark Serral, Innovation, Raynor, and then stats. All right. So it's 5 wins for Zerg, 3 wins for Protoss, 3 wins for Terran. So far in 2019. If anything, Zerg OP, okay? No, but seriously, like, all races are doing just fine. And a lot of people like to blame the reason why they're losing on the ladder on the fact that their opponent is overpowered. But in fact, you just gotta get good. Just stop sucking and get better, okay? Stop blaming things that are outside of your control. It's so easy to be caught up in those stupid things, man. Ay, ay, ay. All races are winning tournaments. And I know what you're thinking. Lowko, I play at least as good as Innovation, okay? And I can't win. It's like, okay, sorry, buddy. It's like, Lowko, I'm definitely just as good as Neep or Serral. Still can't win any games. Lowko, I tried pointing out in the ROG that races aren't OP and balance isn't why people are losing. Wait, you tried to reason? Yeah, that's a rookie mistake, man. I've been trying to reason for a long time. Logic and reason are not, generally speaking, accepted when it comes to balance complaints. Looking at facts, like, that's the reason why I brought up the results, right? Like, if you look at the facts, it's very clear that all races are doing very well. Like, no, that can't be. I'm gonna continue Stalker Void Raying all in my Zerg opponents. And that's the reason why Protoss is weak. It's like, okay. Alright, sure. Lowko, look, I've been playing the game since 2009. I play 2 games a day. Protoss and Terran OP. You play 2 entire games a day? Man. Lowko, Protoss in Heart of the Swarm was unbalanced? No. Now we're taking the discussion in a completely different direction, okay? We can go back in time. I would say beginning Wings of Liberty, Terran was overpowered too. And I think we can all conclude that that is the case because they won pretty much everything. And then they changed the bunker build time. And changed the whole game. Especially the bunker build time though, many times. And it turned out Terran's just fine. So what I'm trying to say is, like, the grass is always greener on the other side, guys. It's really easy to be worried about underperforming races and, you know, looking at your opponents and then thinking they're OP and all that, but in reality, you just gotta get good. Alright, so curious enough, Serral actually makes an extra round of Zerglings here. That's normally not something he does, so we see 4 additional links coming up. I think that means he wants to get more aggressive here. Probably sends those like 10 Zergling or these 8 Zerglings that he's got across the map. He also did 4 scouting Zerglings rather than the conventional 2. Yeah, okay, he wants to get more aggressive here, I think. Yep, goes full into Zergling production here. So keep in mind, this is the game that they played after Serral lost game number 1. So this is probably the kind of game where he's not taking any risks. It's the beautiful thing about StarCraft, right? Even when you're on paper definitely favored, you can still lose. But out-microing Serral is going to be pretty tricky. Alright, so I'm curious to see here when he adds on that evolution chamber. So notice what I wrote down earlier. This is usually what we see right now in macros EVZ. There's no evos here whatsoever. So I'm curious when he starts up the evo chamber right now. In Ling Bane battles, no reason to get too aggressive with those.
Donation accepted.
Hey, thank you very much, Mr. Remuko, for the €5. He says, Lowko trolling his site with 2 games a day at 33 years old. I'm still playing Diamond 2. I take it. Don't think I'm doing that bad. No, definitely not, man. Playing 2 games a day will, like, maintain your skill level, right? It's going to be hard to climb, I think, with 2 games a day. But it's going to be hard to drop as well, right? And, yeah, I think if you're 33, life probably happened at some point. And you're not able to play as many games anymore as maybe you would like to. But, yeah, no, that's great, man. Thank you for the €5. Sorry about that, Kalzor. I see someone got timed out for writing a really long message. The reason why there's spam protection in the chat is because every once in a while, people come into Twitch chat and copy-paste these massive ASCII dongers. Are you familiar with ASCII dongers? Go ahead and Google it. No, don't. So that's the reason why there's a character limit on the amount of words you can type in Twitch chat. Every once in a while, though, we get a false positive. Now, for what it's worth, subscribers in my Twitch chat never get timed out. Because the chances of them copy-pasting dongers in Twitch chat is pretty small, but... I mean, they might. I don't know. It could be. Ah, beautiful micro there by Serral. Super sick. I don't know exactly what the limit is. I'll just leave the word a donger, okay? I think donger is a perfectly descriptive word. Alright, so we have that Ling Bane battle here. And I'm not talking J dongers. No, none of those. You can type anything about J dong all you like. That's cool. Dunner? No, not dunner kebab either. Oh my god. Okay, so he just goes, even though everything is delayed, right now he just goes for the Evo and the Roachworn. Okay. So, very cool. There's another game. In case of early game Ling Bane battles, Roachworn plus Evo at the same time later. And actually, Roachworn plus Evo plus Gas Geyser at the same time later on. So it's a little hard to pinpoint exactly when that is, because I'm sure if Serral would have gotten a great detonation, he would continue the Ling Bane pressure. If he would have gotten a really bad detonation, he would have changed it probably up as well. Very cool. Yeah, so he gets 4 Banelings inside of the main base right here. Alright, that's 7 drones. That's pretty good, right? Pretty good. And that's the kind of advantage that Serral needs. So now we are in the mid-game, right? The Ling Bane phase is over. Long live the Roach. Going into the mid-game against Serral when you're 10 drones behind, it's gonna be rough. Keeps on scouting with Zerglings, right? Also notice the Overlord positioning. So when it comes to Overlord positioning in ZVZ, this is one of the most common things I pretty much always talk about with people that I do coaching with. Overlord positioning in Zerg vs Zerg is super critical. Basically, this goes for like as a general rule, right? For those of you looking to improve in ZVZ. As a general rule, you want to have something, and the easiest thing is an Overlord in the early game. You want to have something scouting the different attack paths. So in this case, there's 3 ways that the opponent can leave the main. It's either going to be through the center, through the top section, or through the bottom section, right? It's like a MOBA map right now. On some maps, you only need one of them. Like, for example, in Thunderbird, you really only need one Overlord to scout all of the attack paths, other than maybe the one, you know, after the mineral patches get mined out. But as a general rule of thumb, you want to have something to scout incoming aggression. Super important. If those Overlords were not in place right now, right? Serral would not be able to position his army properly here to deal with all of this. It sounds like such a small thing, but Overlord... Oh, he's so good. Overlord positioning is super critical in ZVZ. Okay, scouting the amount of drones there. So he's scouting, trying to figure out how many there are. Now he sees a group of roaches making its way across. He starts making his own roaches too. Lowko is good, but he managed to lose a few important matches. Yeah, Serral is starting to lose a little bit more here and there. But I still think he's far and away the best Zerg player in the world. He's very clean with these kind of games.
New subscriber detected.
Thank you, Low CS. This is actually a scary fight. I mean, as long as he holds on without too many drone losses, he would be in a great spot. Defender's advantage in ZVZ is real. Love that spine crawler positioning, man. What in the world? That's such a cool position. Deadly long neck right there. Oh my god. I would pretty much always try and, like, I don't know, move it over here or something. How does it reach that far down? That's what she said. Wait, no, no, no. Those couple of pokes hurt, though. That's what she's... No, no! Family friendly. Alright, so that was a close defense. Alright. Yeah, so from here on out, these kind of games are hard to learn from. Because all of these... You know, it's like playing chess, right? Like... There's about 1 million possibilities for every single one of these games. Well, a lot more than 1 million.
New subscriber detected.
Thank you, Logic, for the 1 year. Yeah, so from here on out, these kind of games are very difficult to read. Basically, just try and play your best. Man, Serral actually wasn't in a great spot, though, this game, in general. What exactly is his MMR right now of Zuliang? Does anyone know? Now, this was a game that was part of the group stages, so even losing here would still not have been that crazy. Wait, does anyone actually know? Because I see a lot of people mentioning MMR. I don't think he's 7.1k. I don't think Zuliang is 9,000 MMR either. I think he's got more than 2,000 MMR too. 5.96k? Really? 5.96k would give Serral this much trouble? That's a little bit above me. So you're saying I could potentially beat Serral? No, I don't think so. We can have a look. SC2 unmasked. Oh, he's a Finnish Zerg player as well. Cool. Let me have a quick look. So there's this website called SC2 Unmasked. If it works, because apparently it's really slow right now. Oh, it's working. So he's currently sitting, okay, at near 6k MMR, yeah. Rank 83 on the ladder. Cool. Very nicely done. That's awesome. So he's at about 6k MMR. Almost actually eliminating Serral there. That would have been quite something. Yeah, so he's a 24-year-old Zerg player from Finland. Cool. Very awesome. All right. Lowko, I think he won because Zerg OP. Okay, all right, sure. Oh, they practice a lot together. All right, that could be. That could be something. He's older than Serral, yeah. A lot of people always talk about like how young Raynor and whatnot is. Like there's a bunch of young pro gamers in StarCraft, like Raynor and Clem, and those names come to mind. Serral himself is like 21, 22. Lowko, how many games a day do you think is necessary to go up in League? I don't know what's necessary, but usually I advise 10 games a day. If you can play 10 games a day, and that should take you about 2 to 3 hours, you'll certainly improve. Obviously, if you have more time, you can play more. If you have less time, you have less. I mean, it's just kind of how it is, right? Like, you have to fit it into your lifestyle. But I try and focus 10 games a day. I think 10 games a day is a good amount. It's quite reasonable for most people that don't have, like, you know, families and those kind of things. I mean, even if you have family, you might still be able to play 10 games a day. But yeah, I think 10 games a day is very good. It's super... Lowko, what about 1 game a month? 1 game a month is difficult to improve with. Lowko, are you saying some people that play StarCraft have lives? I don't know, man. I don't know if that's... Nah, actually, now I think of it. I'm not so sure.